Good morning, everyone. Ti Dave here, and today I'm going to be showing y'all a study somebody sent me, online study about gang stalking. So they studied 50 different people, and I'm just going to be reading what these 50 different people said. They grouped it in different categories of what each person experienced and said. I just think it's very interesting for Ti to see the similarities between everything and what was talked about most by these 50 people. Um, and it's a very good study. Okay, but first, in case y'all missed this video, I'm just gonna play this 1 minute video. I can relate to this 100%. Now, um, this is I give credit to the Most High for these abilities. So you could say trauma develops it. And I'm sure it does, but I think the Most High gives you the discernment to differentiate between uh, what's what, because you still got to listen to that feeling in your stomach. And then, if I would have, acts of kindness are definitely traumatic when people is trying to be nice to you and you're used to everybody shunning you and blacklisting you and being hateful and trying every way to stop you from even getting a meal. It can be horrible. And it can definitely, I'm sure in 2018, due to this, here, let me play it first. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And see, I feel like a lot of times as TIs, sometimes we've been through so much trauma. We'll have a good situation or a positive thing, like somebody might want us to give us a place to stay, or somebody might be offering something, whatever it is, and we get leery and we turn it down. And I feel like a lot of us targets have turned down good things a lot because we were scared and didn't believe that something like that was possible because we'd been through so much trauma. So, I think a lot of times, sometimes our own trauma will isolate us because it's not that there's not good people in here and there. Uh, I've seen that on the street that there are good people out there sometimes that will help. Um, I call it a glitch in the matrix when you're a target individual because you're used to so much bad stuff happening. When something good happens, you don't even accept it because you think it's a scam or somebody trying to perp you, and it can really hurt you. And I know that from experience. So I thought I would share that because I know a lot of people can experience. I mean, I had, I'm sure I had some good opportunities in 2018, and I was just too scared to trust, from trauma. Okay, so let's get to the study. I'm going to share the screen and I'm going to read the study. I really think y'all find this interesting, and I thank the person who sent this. You send a lot of good information. You know who you are. I really appreciate it. Because this week I'm going to get the emails right after this. I dedicated the day to answer emails and get this video out, and then I'm going to be researching and trying to do more. This week was hectic. You know how targeting is. They'll create situations where they'll create situations where it takes up your whole day and you ain't got time to do nothing but focus on your responsibilities. And I'm not going to talk about those situations because they bank off stuff like that. And it's kind of like a bully. If you talk about what bothers you and you show them what bothers you, they're going to do it more. But I am going to talk about this real quick. This did happen to me this week. Okay, this is some perp, and I really think I'm not going to say anyway. So uh, this dude keeps trying to call me, reach out to me, whatever. I haven't had time, but I did try. He said, "Oh, I want to do an interview. I want to do an interview," and this was a year ago. Well, I called him about the interview, and he's like, "No, I don't want to do an interview." So anyway, look, so I decided, he reached out again on Discord, and I'm like, he said, he said, uh, hold on, he said, I'm a targeted person, and he said, I said, okay, just got your call. I'm not on here much. I'm calling TIs tomorrow, 30 minutes each. If you want, I'll put you on the list. Okay, group call, brothers. Um, and I said, no group call. I help TIs like myself. I call them one on one. Um, he said, do you have implants too? I said, I'm sure I do have implants. I'll call you tomorrow. So I called him. Uh, I called him several times and he never answered. Well, so after I called him several times, he didn't answer. I see this post about V2K device and something metal in your ear, which I think somebody recently, I'm not going to mention no names, faked pulling a metal piece out of the ear just so they could, so people wouldn't see through their bullshit and would believe them more and listen to them more. I see stuff other people don't going on in the community, and I could say some stuff right now that would make so much sense to people who are awake, but I'm not going to. Some things are just better left alone because it's kind of like if you get 8 people to go up against the gorilla's going to win every time if 8 people ain't got no weapons. So some things are just too big to talk about because it don't do no good anyway. Okay, so it says so the dude put something about I can't wait till they find out there's something metal in people's ears with V2K, and so I started typing. I said, "Bro," I said, my girlfriend said her handler one day pulled something out of his ear, metal piece, and it had blood on it, and she thinks that he's communicate. She thought he might have been communicating with the other people through it, and I started to post it, and then I deleted it. I backspaced all of it. So I backed up through all of it and deleted it. And you know how you delete it one by word, backspace, backspace, all. So a minute after I done that, um, I get a message from this. I'm talking about a split second, uh, or a minute, about a minute and a half after. It said, "My friend, do you believe the government implanted me years ago with nanotechnology behind my ears?" I said, "Are you in my phone, bro? I just started typing something about an implant in the ear and about one of my friend's handler having an implant behind his ear and that he pulled it out. And then I decided not to type it and I backed up and erased it. And you send me this right afterwards. Now I haven't got a response yet. So so it's one or two things because I know the games they play. Either this dude's serious about reaching out, and they're trying to keep him from talking to me and possibly helping him. And so they used his messenger to write that. They're in my phone. They used his messenger to write that, or it's just the perp kind of indirectly telling me, "Hey, I'm in your phone. I just seen what you just did." So anyway, and that was a weird story I had. But see, they play games, so now I have to decide: am I gonna call this dude, or was it a perp? You know. So it's just crazy how they do that, but I know for a fact, Gerald Salisbury tried to help me back in 2018. I was really going through it. Just found out I was targeted, but I didn't know I'd been targeted for years, but I didn't know what a TI was or anything about the TI program, honeypots, perps. I didn't know the ins and outs of what they do and tactics. I'd just been sent a video by James Harkin called Community Policing, and it was a text message from my handler, and she said, "I did this to you." And it was a James Harkin video, said community policing. And then what's weird is after I watched the video, I went back to screenshot the link and it had been deleted off the text. So that would have been good proof if I would have thought right then, "Hey, screenshot this." But I didn't know what was done to me or what. It just said I did this to, and it was called community policing because everywhere I was going, I was getting flagged. Notifications were being sent out to every business, churches, everybody, totally blacklisted. Um, so anyway, and then I just lost my train of thought. Well, so anyway, let me get back to the focus at hand. So I've been busy, so I am going to get to emails and all that, and today, and I'm going to be hopefully have more time to deep dive into stuff and put some videos out there and some content. I'm still doing interviews. I got a couple scheduled coming up, so bear with me, and I thank you for your patience and understanding. Because you gotta understand, I'm getting V2K 24/7. Been doing garlic, heavy metal, garlic, the stun gun EMP, the orgonite pendant, exercise, uh, and then multitasking, deep breathing techniques, praising God, uh, um, and prayer. When I don't just get up here and say, "Oh, I read the Bible," I really praise God and pray. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying it really helps, especially reading the Bible, especially reading Psalms out loud. I read Psalms out loud morning and night. Or I'll put a good praise and worship song. I think I got a few praise and worship songs in my playlist down there, and I'm going to try to add some more good ones when I have time, and I should have a little bit more time starting now. Okay, so anyway, this is a study. The PMC, NCBI, NIH.gov articles. I just think this is an interesting study, and I thank the person again for sending it. Here we go. In order to overcome this problem, we decided to conduct a study of the experiences of those reporting gang stalking that allow the components of their experience to emerge de novo from their detailed accounts rather than being shoehorned. Hold on. Let me get this online where I can just pull it down without being shoehorned into preconceived framework. This follows the phenomenological approach expounded by Mullen, in which subjective phenomena are approached through descriptive phenomenology, free of restraints of existing classification systems. The main aim of the study was to identify the phenomena that constitute subjective experience of gang stalking, free from assumptions based on the cases of those stalked by individuals. A second aim was to allow the emergence of psychological behavior of gang stalking deemed most worthy of reporting by those describing their gang stalking experiences, which therefore were likely to be the most concerning to them. A subsidiary aim was to establish whether experiences of the group selected for the study differed from those of the sample acquired by Sheridan and James from a questionnaire survey, or whether the two were the part of the same phenomenon. Method. The study involved a mixed qualitative and quantitative design using content analysis, which a sample of self-published accounts of gang stalking extract from the internet. The research was approved by the Human Research Ethics Committee, and I don't care about universities or none of that. I just care about letting y'all see what was done with these studies. Okay, the selection, a sample of 50 written accounts was considered sufficient to capture the overall essence of participants' experience while also giving the data to have adequate quantifiable merit. Self-published accounts of gang stalking were selected from either websites, web forums on the internet via purposive convenience sampling using Google searches, websites, blogs, forums with the search gang stalking, group stalking, gang stalking stories, victims of gang stalking, TI, and various combinations thereof. More than 20 million hits were revealed in the initial search. 50 personal accounts of gang stalking were identified for use in the study following the first 250 relevant leaks. All links were investigated, whatever their type, personal, dedicated sites, Facebook, etc. Only accounts including explicit statements pertaining to personal experiences of the victim of gang stalking. I'm targeting individual. Ain't that funny? 20 million hits of targeted individuals, but they say we're mental. They say it's not real. They're covering it up. And it's an illusion so vast that anybody who sees through the illusion will be deemed crazy. So remember that. Okay, accounts were required to exceed a minimum of 250 words to ensure that there was sufficient detailed material to analyze. Accounts were not so there are 50 people, and because and they were in distress and they were typing stuff about gang stalking. I'm assuming, and they made sure that each account they took in was over 250 words. Accounts were not included where there were indications that the writer was below the age of 18. Only material in the English language was included in the study. And I'm sorry that if you don't speak English good or that's not your language, I'm sorry. This is still a good study in my opinion. Uh, And it's just interesting. Okay, content analysis. Let's just get over the first case. 50 cases to meet inclusion criteria was adopted. Saturation of information was deemed to be met by the following analysis of 40 cases. This was indicated by no new categories emerging from the data. Okay, here it goes. In order to gain insight into subjective experience of self-defined victims of gang stalking, a content analysis is conducted. Content analysis is a research method that provides a systematic, objective means to make valid inferences from verbal, visual, or written data in order to describe any quantified specific phenomena. It provides a systematic, objective means of making informed inferences from data via the use of categories, a category being a group content that shares a commonality. Content analysis allow for a broader range of categories to be generated to reflect participant responses. It does not require that all data be coded, particularly when there's a higher inter-rater agreement on the categories generated. No categories were established a priori. In order to generate the initial category, two of the authors separately coded 10 gang stalking accounts. Following this, we collaborated to generate a list of categories to which subsequent participant experiences will be allocated. This was the interior process with categories subject to refinement throughout the remaining analysis. With more than 95% across categories, inter-rater agreement, absolute agreement across categories generated, with consensus reached on disagreements via discussion. Validity was tested by checking the categories back against the original text to ensure clear examples from each category could be identified in the original text. Content analysis may encompass both the qualitative and quantitative methodology. Once the categories were established in the present work, they were expressed using both percentage and actual numbers. This allowed us to describe what the study population had written, to describe what was both visible and obvious within the accounts. Again, two of the authors performed these analyses separately. Okay, after coding, some standard descriptive data were gathered. Okay. Statistical analysis. Comparisons of the categories generated through the content analysis in the current study were compared with data collected via a survey method. Okay, and I'm going to get down to the results. Okay, length of stalking. None of the writers of the narratives described their experiences having ended. All 50 authors stated or implied that they had been gang stalked for a lengthy period of times. Example given. One mentioned being seen by 7 psychologists during a period of targeting. Another described having been targeted while living in 3 different countries. The shortest case is described as being done in the last few months, and as longest has continued more than 22 years. Reasons for the stalking. The narratives were examined to establish whether perceived reasons for being targeted by gang stalkers could be identified. Reasons were found in 20 of 50 accounts. In all 20 cases, no named person was believed to be targeting the victim. Represented examples of the reasons given for stalking were as follows. Why? To drive people to meet up with groups or psychiatrists so they can be medicated, or get more federal grants for mental health instead of training a real police force. Post-traumatic stress syndrome is a big seller in the area. This is people from the study. It's a brainwashing military experience. Post 9/11, they isolate certain people to stop them acting against the government. It's a part of an overt agenda to create test mind control. They are creating weaponry tested on us. Another one said, I began driving a friend around to make his pot sales. I started noticing we would get tailed from time to time. I know this friend had connects in weird places. He knows members of Anonymous. He knows people who work at the Pentagon. I also did a lot of research and was very vocal about being anti-government, anti-corporation. This is what got me targeted. If you're vocal about your positions, you'll eventually run across a civilian spy who will pass the information to their superiors, who will continue to pass the information up the chain of command. Once you're on their list, your life can become a living hell. Another person said, I'm watched for 30 years after they put in implants to see what the implants did to me. And another person said, because I refused to join their devil cult and become an operative, I became a victim. My invitation to join came at an early age via voice to skull. Categories of experience of gang stalking. 24 categories of experience were identified in the 50 accounts of self-identified victims of stalking. These are set out in Table 1 together with proportions describing them. Given the purpose of the study was to elucidate the phenomena constituting subjects' experiences of being stalked, each category is illustrated in the table using description from case accounts. Spelling errors in the accounts have been corrected to aid comprehension. The most frequently experienced categories concern being physically followed or surveilled, 94%, or being the target of conspiracy, 80%. Two-thirds claim that they were subject to physical interference, intimidation, and harassment. Okay, here's the first table. Content analysis of self-defined victims, gang stalking victims' accounts according to their subjective experiences. Here's a category code, frequency, percentage of victim responses. First, number 1. Here's what Here's what some of the victims said about physical surveillance and being followed. 94%, 47 people out of the 50 talked about this. Some were following me when I went to the restroom or cafe. Some people jumped on me while I was walking along the corridors of the office building, pretending like accidents. I would also be followed to the library by people wearing disguises, elaborate, not just a wig and glasses. Sometimes dressed as other races, even makeup and all. Lately, the following has got so extreme the cars tailgate with drivers openly speaking in the walkie-talkies at supermarkets where individuals with heavy duty black earpieces saunter up to my shopping carts and note when I'm purchasing and walk away. Followed by on the job criminal evasion, investigation, followed on foot, car by police officers. That's another person. Another person said the perps who follow me around are trying to make me believe I'm being hunted, eaten by hybrid chimps and gorillas. Now that was, I mean, they probably made him believe that, him or her, because that's what they try to make you do. They make you some accounts. They'll make you think and say stuff, believe stuff that's so crazy. I was talking to Holly the other day about my Springfield, Missouri experience and how, um, and it's just hard to explain, but they put me in. I really thought like when I walked out this Walmart at midnight or whatever, in middle of the night, this girl and this guy was walking in Walmart, and this girl said to me, "It's kind of like the death camps, ain't it? All over again." And when she said that, it activated something, and I'm thinking it's the end of the world. And for some reason, I was totally in a different world all of a sudden. It wasn't a different world. I was in the world, the same place I was at. I'd walked out of Walmart. I was walking down the road. But what I'm saying is, it put my mindset into really believing the end of the world was here and all kind. It's. I'm gonna tell that story another day. Just remind me. So so what they do is they can put a simulation in your brain and run it for you to believe it. So you're living it, but nobody else is living it, but it's your reality. And they can do it temporarily or they can do it a long period of time because that only lasted about 2 days when they put me in it. Um, well, about a day, a good long day. Okay, so anyway, let's go. As I drive down the road, multiple cars. So what they can do, they can put scripts in your mind, scripts, and you live out these scripts and really think they're going on, and it's just a totally different world, totally different mindset for a period of time. Now mine only lasted one day. I'm sure they can do it longer, I've experienced this two or three different times. So now I'll talk about that one day. That's one thing that came to my memory that was done to me in 2015 during Jade Helm. Okay, victim of a conspiracy. Number two. So 40 out of the 50, 80% said they were victim of a conspiracy by multiple agencies. And here's the different things that were said. I believe that his government's behind it with help of local police and other local agencies. Another person said people are spied on, fusion centers, red squads, police sheriffs, people recruited by Homeland Security through Craigslist videos, people paid by FBI stipends, people with clearances. Another person said it's true. Stalking is nonstop, round the clock, worldwide, controlled, manipulated by police, every doctor, shop, store, neighbor, while all actors' friends turn away, leaving me to be attacked. Most of all websites for targets appear false to me with disinformation, galore, trolls writing misleading articles, and attacking people trying to communicate. Boy, that last part was very important to me. I mean, I can relate anyway. I can relate to the whole thing right there. Uh, the blacklisted all everywhere you go and all that, and then these websites with all this misleading, these pe I call it well, controlled opposition, trying claiming to help but having an agenda. Okay, another person said police cars, Army truck, Navy show up more often when I go out. When I was bullied at my previous company, some police cars follow me for no reason for a mile or two. However, I'm not exactly sure who are at the top. They could be some powerful people, or it could be rogue elements of intelligence agencies around the world. And I'm just reading the study. Just because I'm reading the study don't mean I agree or disagree with anything these people are saying. This is a test. This is a study I'm reading. And anybody who knows me knows what I think about this stuff. And if you don't know me and have questions, just ask in the comments. Okay, there's a wonderful feeling. Another person said there's a wonderful feeling in achieving a result against the enemy who has everything on their side. From police, councils, M15, all those MI5, all those normal people from all walks of life. Another person said, who funds this crap? Are you sitting down? Do you have the ability to see beyond the obvious? If not, you're wasting my valuable time. Here's the list. And they put insurance companies, governments, agencies, law enforcement, military, disability companies, workers' compensation, pharmaceutical, very rich individuals that have vested or non-vested interest in another individual. CIA, FBI, Homeland Security, terrorist cells, to name a few. Okay, so that's what they said about who about um, that was number two, victim of a conspiracy by multiple agencies, and that's what was said about it. Okay, so number three, physical interference, intimidation, and harassment. 33 people said this, 66%. And here's what they said. Some of the harassment tactics are strangers blocking my way using grocery carts, invading my personal space, cutting me off while I'm walking or driving. Next person said, these last months I've seen my stalkers become extremely aggressive. I've been forced off the road numerous times while driving my cars. I've had cars come straight at me, making it appear they are creating a head-on collision to scare me. Another person said, I've been drugged, set up, harassed, mobbed, pestered, bumped into, and bullied. Another person said, I mean, at least 50 people are involved just watching me go to and from work, shining lights in my face. Another person said, all the cars running into each other harass me. The cars running into each other, practically running over people to get to me. It's nice to be so popular. Another person said, and every day now they're knocking me in the street and all in the stores, bothering me and pushing me with their hands always. Number four, establishment, cover up. 32% said talked about this. 32 of the people mentioned this. Um, 64%. The authorities, finance, protect, organize stalker, and media blank any coverage of it. Another person said, don't ever think of going to any authority that's known as the highest levels in bail. Number three, all the big organizations are part of it. Yes, you name them, I will tell you. I just found out that food safety inspection services are part of this. They've infiltrated all levels. This is why they can hide their actions. I need to be fast as they will wipe this more or less as I type, but some examples I will offer. All government departments, all media, all airlines, U.S. Air Force, medical establishments, banks, large store companies who make weapons. Well, what do all of them have in common? InfoGuard. I think the Department of Justice is the main agency behind the cover up. Okay. So here's number five of the study, electronic surveillance. So 60%, 30 people of the 50 claimed electronic surveillance. The resident I lived in was electronically bugged, or I was put in audio visual surveillance. Another person said, furthermore, to be stalked 24/7 by electronic devices, harassed, and invade my space and privacy rights. Further, to monitor by surveillance, use chemicals, energy to exploit me behind the scenes. Another person said, I've been a victim of 24/7 covert electronic surveillance. Another person said, that's when the resident I live in was electronically bugged. I was put under audio visual surveillance inside the so called home I live in. The last one said, and this is not everybody, they just took some of the people, some of the things out of it. Irradiating people with satellite over the horizon radar grid, which is through the wall interferometry to scan, spy, assault, mind control. Okay, number six, targeted by noise. 22 people, 44%. The one says, sometimes it's hard to sleep because of noise harassment. Sometimes I actually use earplugs when I go to bed. Another person wrote, as I write this, the persecutions happen to me right now. Noise techniques, stalkers living as I wall, sharing neighbors, time door slamming, coughs, laughs, toilet flushing. Another person said, I'm studying in school and numerous noise campaigns happen. Another person said the same sounds being heard since 20 years in different homes, different cities, different states. The whole day the stone is used at different times in a heuristic manner. Sometimes every 5 minutes, sometimes continuous, sometimes loudly. I think it meant to say the sound, to not stone. Another one person said using codified noise and references during my orgasms as an interference of threat, physical torture. Okay, another person said noise and mimicking campaigns, disrupting target's life, sleep with loud power tools, construction, stereo, door slamming, etc. Talking in public about private things in the target's life, mimicking actions of the target, basically letting the target know they're in the target's life, daily interferences, nothing that would be too overt to the untrained eye, but psychologically degrading, damaging to the target over time. In my case, I have not noticed this since London is quite noisy anyway. I know whom to contact after years of working for local authorities. The moment a perp attempts this tactic. For a time, pebbles were thrown over the roof of my house in the middle of the night until I installed CCTV cameras. I remember when uh, in 2014 at night they started tapping on the window like our bed. I was with my handler at the time, and our bed was up against we had a double wide trailer. Our bed was up against the window. Well, at night they would tap on it, and then they would go around in the trailer tapping on the windows in the middle of the night. So I got a drill. and I had these boards, and I boarded up the top part of the window. You could still see out the window, but you know how you got the trailer windows and you got they're tall windows. So I just boarded up where I could see out. So just in case, because I didn't know why they were banging on the windows, you know. Okay, number seven, being remotely controlled, mind control. So I can relate to some of these things that are being said, and I know we all can, especially the noise campaign part. Uh, so let's get into in the electronic surveillance part. Um, as of who it is, I don't, well, I'm under the I really as of who it is, I really don't know who it is. I think it's definitely got to be some high clearance technology, so government's got to be involved somehow. Uh, but from my experiences on the road, I don't think every police officer's in on it at all. But that's from my experience. Different targets experience different things, and this is showing exactly what's going on and what we all have in common, the stuff we're experiencing. Um, I think they could have been a little broader and maybe did 200 targets on this thing, to be a little bit broader. All right. Anyway, number seven, being remotely controlled, mind control. 20 people said this as 40% of the survey. Okay, people have no idea just how far advanced the authorities are in mind control methods and means they have to apply it. Another person said, I've been the victim of 24/7 covert electronic surveillance, psychological harassment, manipulation, and mind control. Another person said they are fully able to take control of everyone's thought process. They did it in Germany, and it's happening here right now. Another person said they'll cover you in chemtrails and you can't scrub them off, even using vitamin scrubs. Then they allow them to take control of your mind and thoughts. Another person said the mind control tactics are highly sophisticated and they have orders that make you see reflections of yourself. And another person said they insert thoughts and ideas. It took me a while to work out that these were not my thoughts, not my own ideas. I've said all that at some point, and I really believe all that's happening. So what you're seeing here is, from my understanding, they had 50 people and they did some kind of thing, and some kind of way they picked these 50 different people. But if you notice, they're all saying the same thing. So I don't think we're crazy after all. You can't tell me all these people. I used to tell my dad this. You can't tell me all these people are on YouTube and all over social media saying the same things happening to them, and no, and it's not real. Okay. All right. Number eight, subject to electronic hacking. 19 people said that. 38%. All my passwords, emails, login, basically all my private info is compromised. You hear that from every target. The perps hacking into not only my telephone but cell phones of my family members too, in order to obtain information about travel plans so they can arrange people at strategic locations to diminish street theater and well-rehearsed live live dramas take place. Definitely. My computer's been hijacked, mobile and LAN phone. My ex-husband and my cell phones were cloned. It's the story of a TI right here. It's just interesting how 50 people, and I'm sure they did some kind of broad choosing from different uh, things and everything. But why is everybody talking about the same thing if this is not real? Okay, the gang stalker followed me to a friend's house, hacked my cell phone to listen to the conversation inside, put my mother's number on it as if she had called. She hadn't. I've dealt with that kind of stuff before. What you also got to do is too is I had um in 2018 uh I dealt with some psyops. Well, I'll tell you what they did. So I wasn't able to get the money for the phone bill 1 month, and so this girl, it was like a government phone. It was like $25 that was paid to make it unlimited, right? So I get a I look at my phone like 3 days later and it says you got like 700 minutes left. So I call. I spent hours on the phone to get to somebody, and I'm like, look, I paid for unlimited. Well, it may have been a week later. I paid for unlimited, and I was doing talk shoe at night on them calls and all that. So I said I paid for unlimited, and he's like, "Yes, sir, you did, but you went over 10,000 minutes, and so you won't be able to pay for another unlimited service until this whole month's over, and you got to use your minutes." And I said, "What?" I said, unlimited means unlimited. He's like, no, there's a clause in there where if you go over 10,000 minutes, sir, uh, then you can't buy no more minutes till the next month. And I'm like, wow. And I know that's not true. So, um, just crazy stuff. All right, so let's get back to the study. Sorry to venture off. Okay, my computer has been hijacked. All right, okay, the gang stalker. Okay, after hours of researching again tonight, I somehow found myself here. I had to register to post this comment, but before I got my email to confirm, they already changed my password. They're that quick and proficient. And yes, they are. If they really want to be, they done that to me in 2018. They also, in Baton Rouge, walking down the road, factory reset my phone and gave me a new phone number. Sure did. Walking down the road, I wasn't punching buttons. I looked down at my phone and was looking at something, or getting ready to contact somebody, and the phone factory reset itself. Then I get up, I call, and they're like, I called them and asked them what happened. This is a straight talk phone. They told me, well, we're sorry, your SIM card must have went bad or something. Well, you're gonna have to get a new SIM card. And I said, well, I'm kind of homeless at the moment. I don't really have an address. Then all of a sudden I hung up on him. I was upset. I hung up on him. Then I get this text that this is your new number. So always remember when you get a phone to write your contacts down, three or four different places. Because if you're carrying it around in your purse or wallet, chances are it's going to get wear and tear on it. You might not be able to see the names. So you always want to write contacts down because they can disappear from phones quick. Okay, victimized is part of a global phenomenon. 19%, 19 people said that, 38%. He said also, I think this is a collaborative work of intelligence agencies around the world. Another person said this is a global program, is real, and just because it's not happening to them doesn't mean it's not happening at all. Another person said, the government knows this is not a theory, this is evidence, global past and present. Another person said, they run the world. All the people in power are them. Another person said, I have many instances, and so do thousands of around the world. Number 10, physical ailments as a direct of gang stalking. 18 people, 36%. One person said, skin is peeling off. My scalp's been burned quite a few times. I've been poisoned, diarrhea for 7 days straight till I was able to get medicine. Another person said, there are many nights I was gassed, electrocuted. Did not think I would live long enough to see daylight hours the next morning. Been through that. Another person says, so much gamma rays and the radiation pumped through me, it hurts. Story of all kinds of TIs saying this stuff. It's kind of neat that it's reached like studies and stuff, but you know, let's just get on. I have undergone extreme poisoning in my home. My body literally shocked more times than I can count. The most occurrence happen when I try to go to sleep at night. Sleep deprivation is, I'm assuming, one of their favorite punishment. My skull has been fried and replaced with who knows what. I know a lot of us have been there. At one time, I could barely leave my house because of the melting feeling in my head. They constantly play with my heart as if a beanbag and has also been subjected to their very joyful shock treatment. Sometimes I cannot even feel a heartbeat. The feeling of being removed and replaced was the eeriest feeling of my life. Once they removed it, I could not feel any part of my body, and the ceiling darkened as if I were really dying until they decided to plug it back in. I've undergone consistent harassment. I've also undergone constant pressure to my head as it being squeezed. Even while driving, they hijacked my neurons and made them ache. You can't have poison and electronic interference to these levels without physical trauma as a consequence. I haven't been able to, another person said, I haven't been able to breathe outdoors for years. This is how it all started. I woke up drowning in mucus every night, 4.5 years. When I go outside, even for a minute, the chemtrail toxins stick to me like a magnet and smell so strong I have to scrub the hell out of my skin to get it off. Okay, here we go. 11. Targeted by slander and gossip. 17 people said it. 34%. I'm surprised that's not more. That's not more. I've been through it. This number one. This is another. Well, the first person said this is done via slander campaigns and lies. Example given. People in the TI's community are told the target's a thief, into drugs, prostitute, a pedophile, crazy, in trouble for something, needs to be watched. False files will even be produced on the target, shown to neighbors, family, storekeepers. Attempts of this have been made against me with limited success. Often people who know me or individuals at places I frequently have given me CCTV footage or descriptions of the perpetrators who try to slander me. I've been through that heavy. That was the heavy part of my targeting, and still is, I'm sure. Another person said slowly they were able to turn many people against me by spreading all sorts of lies and rumors. Another person said more and more people are trying to cause accidents around me. People at work almost seem bipolar. One minute they're friendly, next they're telling lies to me and many people. Another person said, any man starts to go on about the slander about you, because there always is, just walk away. I was, then what you find is you're slandered by TIs in the community who jump to conclusions about you by judging you. They may judge you because you may be homeless, and you may be trying to reach out to the TI community, new to the TI community, and get dismissed as uh, uh, drug addict, whatever, just because you're homeless and judged. And because TIs do it too, TIs slander people and smear names too. Um, it's not just the perps doing it. You got TIs involved in it, and that's one of the worst things you can have going on is when you got TIs in the community slandering you based off judgment or based off uh, it being put in the community about you via perps, and they're believing it and helping spread the message. In my opinion, people who do that without investigating and really making sure it's the right information are just as bad as the perps. All right, if any man starts to go on about, all right, it is the nonstop, constant lies about my life, and they're telling everyone I am seeing. All right, number 12, reinterpretation of past events in the light of the gang stalking experiences. 17, 34%. One person said, I remember those strange occurrences. They didn't give me a sense years ago, but now I'm able to fix the mosaic. Another person said, now I think back, I think he may have just been saying it so he could carry on he was doing. Another person said this is interpreting past events that happened to him of this experiences. Another person said I left the city because of suffocation problems. Thought it was just pollution, but now I know better. Another person said I had been bullied at many different places. I thought they'd happen because of my fault. I was just unlucky. Now I know my perpetrators have been denying my human basic rights for years. They have been sabotaging all my opportunities. They've been ruining my personal, social, and data relationships. They've been doing lots of evil acts. They've been trying to push me into the lowest level of the social ladder. And another person said, all along I doubted myself. Then I had a series of revelations slash reevaluations that enabled me to see it had been running things this way for me. Okay, 13. Subject to clandestine, unauthorized entry to home. 17 people said this, 34%. One person said I had people coming into my house when I'm not home. Even when I'm home, take nothing, move things around. My attic space is always looking different each time I'd go up into it. I had somebody, every time I'd come home, the trailer door would be wide open. There's a bunch more incidences I could talk about that happened. Stuff coming up missing and reappearing, or they might write a note on the mirror, a mirror. I remember one time I came home. Me and my handler came home. There was a note on the mirror, wrote in lipstick, "We're watching you," stuff like that. Okay, all right. Here it says, at this time, I started noticing strange things happening inside the residence I was living in, my home. Personal things started showing signs of being gone through by someone. Books, personal papers, journals had pages folded, were marked in various places. In some cases, were missing. All right. Another person said, now I can't even leave my house because as soon as I'm at home, I am home, they're talking. Then they are inside going through all my personal papers, moving my undergarments. Another person said, they will enter your premises, move things, alter things just to let you know they've been there. Another person said, every time I went to the store, their network was inside my bathroom. They have the crazy need to check my cabinets. I can hear them whispering, she is coming home, let's leave. All right, number 14, vandalism, theft of property. 16 people, 32%. Wires in my car were badly damaged when it was at a garage overnight. Another person said one of the first incidents was finding items ruined that I couldn't explain. Another person said my vehicle has been broken into and vandalized. Another person said they're all about causing property damage and bugging cars. Another person said my car broken into, the locks to my house door punched out, my screen windows cut in order to gain access. The list goes on and on. Another person said breaking up my dog kennels was one of the final straws. Okay, number 15. Police as part of the conspiracy. 16 people said this, 32%. So one person said the police turn a blind eye. Another person said a state police helicopter would hover over the library and follow me home. Another person said even when it's done directly in police in plain sight upon my approaching them, they pretend they did not see it. Another person said I believe it's government behind us with the help of police and other agencies. The other person said the truth is that illegal surveillance and police things are taking place. Let's not forget about watch lists that are being sent to your law enforcement. List can also be a local law enforcement list. Another person said the police department has gotten involved. They're constantly following me, not pulling me over, ticking me for anything, just following me about every day. Um, Number 16, neighbors as part of the conspiracy. 13 people said this, 26%. Electronic harassment, everything's come from your neighbors, one person said. Another person said, since 2012, I began to find some of the people, neighbors I've known all my life are involved. Another person said, my neighbors started to harass me in various ways. One on the right above my apartment stated jumping on the floor at night. Another one banged my wall while I was sleeping. Some neighbors frequently slammed the doors. Another person said, as I've stated, some of my neighbors are stalking me. Another person said, I ended up in tears this morning after another argument with perp neighbors. Another person said, but certainly many of my neighbors, not all, are involved now. Okay, I'm gonna do one more and I'm gonna take a break. But this is all one video, so I'm just pausing it and it'll be all connected, so it's really not gonna affect y'all at all. So I don't know why I said that. Family and friends of victim also targeted. 13%. 13 people, 26%. Far too many of my own friends are being slandered, attacked in this manner to ignore this now. Another person said, my best friend now has suffered threats, harassment at work through his landlord. He has had cars driving around him the same way they do to me. He had strangers outside his house looking to his flat. Some neighbors now hate him. Everything that has happened to me only in a less intense way. The other person said, my family and friends have been harassed, stalked as well, also extended family. Their cars have been tampered with, third-party attempts to monitor credit card spending. Another person said, then during the night they entered the home, left the object for me to find, and let me know my friend was in danger. Another person said, recently, when a relative died, I got 3 block calls that day, which leads me to believe they are cyber stalking my family. Another person said, my dad's been a target for decades. My grandpa's was a Freemason. Dad said grandpa got shot in the chest with some kind of weapon and died from a heart attack. Number 18, voice to skull transmission, a widespread belief among TIs that mind control technologies based on microwave signals are used to transmit sound and thought directly in their heads. I can attest for that. This is real. 13 people, 26%. They automate the V2K. It's repetitive and constant. It's compromised entirely. Insults, instructions. Go, get out. You better get out of here. Dead. You're in trouble. And out and over. Another person said, B2K speaking from a man on the business end of it, 4 years now, the most insidious evil technology ever concocted. Another person said, I've also been brainwashed via V2K in the past to believe alien species, anthropods, arachnids are going to eat me. It gets scary at times because if you hear something for so long, it starts to affect you. So he wasn't saying it was happening. He said that they were trying to make him believe it was happening. Another person said, I hear voices of people who interrogate me, maltreat, and torture me around the clock. See, I've become aware of this only the past 12 years since they started giving me V2K and gang stalk me. Okay, I'm going to pause this for a minute and I'll be right back. Okay. Okay, let's see what we got. Number 20. I'm sorry about that. I had to take a break. I think I went too far down. Okay. 12. 24% said all my family's in on it, as your own family will be. You can't trust anyone. One person said my family participates in this horrendous low-life crime against all decent men and women. Another person said my fiance of 8 years was turned, now I'm alone. Another person said, next thing you know, family members and friends are cutting all ties with me. They do not want to speak. They will not tell me why. They will not explain what their decision is based upon. Another person said, my only weapons going forward and expose them. And this person said, Swiss government, town of Zurich, churches of Zurich, my own family and their friends. Okay, number 20, control and surveillance devices implanted into the body. 24% said this, 12 people. They said they put nano microchips in the vagina and make circuit boards there with them. Another person said, I consider myself lucky. I ain't never heard nobody say that. Another person said, I consider myself lucky in one way, if I can say that. I was surgically mutilated more than 30 years ago, and I think since implants in me loosened up a bit, I went to a sauna, went to a burial chamber, and did many crazy things in desperation. Another person said, I'm curious about how a person like myself might get into contact with someone who can help to remove implanted devices. evaluate for implanted devices, also to network with others to take a proactive approach to halt this sort of thing. Another person said, I damaged the nano cameras in my eyes by stretching the eyelid. I did the right thing. Be careful not to damage your eyes if you do the same. And another person said, they're building cyborg techniques inside of me. I don't know how, but they're doing it wirelessly. Okay. Another person, this is physical attacks, 22%. One person said, I've been physically sexually attacked by 4 men over the course of my stalking. I've heard this. I've heard of men and women both getting electronically tortured sexually. Now, I went through like 2 months where they were shocking my left testicle, but I really haven't experienced no electronic rape or touching or whatever it is, and praise God for that. Another person said, but it does happen because I've heard many talk about it. Another person said, I've undergone extreme poisoning within my home. My body's been shocked more times than I can count. The most occurrences happen when I try to go to sleep at night. Sleep deprivation is, I'm assuming, one of their favorite punishments. My skull has been fried and replaced with who knows what. Another person said, my scalp's been burned quite a few times. I've been poisoned, diarrhea 7 days straight until I was unable to get medicine. Another person said, there are many nights I was gassed, electrocuted. I did not think I would live long enough to see the daylight hours till the next morning. And another person said, oh, yes, they beat me with hard sticks. I have bruises. I'm in pain. 22. Producing evidence of gang stalking fails to persuade authorities to intervene. 10 people, 20% said that. So 20% of the people, of the 50 people, produced evidence, and it didn't persuade people, the police, to intervene. So this person said, I have 7 psychologists who evaluated me, confirming I was stalked, gang stalked. Another person said, however, I've spoken to police officers who freely admit they know it's happening in their area. This proves that it's a very real experience, not down to medication in any way. Another person says, I have tons of pics of them doing it. Another person said, no, how much evidence I produced, I would be ignored and the tax would be increased. One other person said, photographs, car registration numbers, amongst other privately collected evidence that's been submitted to my local police office. Another person said, thousands of pieces of evidence or material are in my possession, but for what good? They're all part of it, so I can't show anyone. Um, all right, here we go. And it does feel like that, and sometimes we are ignored even though we show good evidence, but they'll always leave one little strand of plausible deniability. If you're lucky enough to get hardcore evidence without plausible deniability, then then um then you're really really fortunate, because from my experience they always leave plausible deniability. For instance, they'll pull they might pull up in front of your house every day and sit in different cars, and you know that this your neighborhood's quiet, and you know that nobody ever sits there, but they'll do it, and they don't care if you take pictures or not, because the average person's going to say, oh, they were on their cell phone. Really? Somebody still parks there 3 or 4 times a day on their cell phone? Okay, well, when I've been in this neighborhood 20 years, I'm speaking just in general. I've been in this neighborhood 20 years and know this neighborhood's quiet, yet a car comes sits 2 or 3 times a day and you're telling me it. But to the normal person, they'll be like, oh yeah, it was just somebody on the phone probably. They can't fathom what's really going on behind the scenes. Okay, medical practitioners as part of conspiracy. 10 people out of the 50 said it, 20%. So over a 2 year period, I was taken from my home in handcuffs 4 times, diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic. Another person said to be labeled as delusional has ruined me. The psychiatric cabal got what they wanted. Another person said I was sick of hearing voices. I thought I might be able to report it and get somewhere back to normal life. Wrong. They put me in a mental ward. I stayed for 3 weeks. Another person said I was the one put in the mental institution that is sick. Then another person said they diagnosed me as mentally ill for their profit. And many, many are saying this. Many more than 20% are saying that they were falsely, that they're not mental and that they were falsely given diagnoses, which is one of the goals of this program. Okay, number 24. Complained that they didn't know why they were being stalked. So only 8 people, 16% said this out of the 50. And okay, I clearly don't know why they targeted me at the first place. Another person said, but why would you make a single woman with 2 children suffer to the extreme, especially if you have no personal relationship with them? Can we say personal vendetta to the maximus grudges should never run that deep? Another person said, I just want to know why. Another person said, I always wonder why they hate me so much. Sometimes I cried because of it. Another person said, I have no idea why it started, why it's what started it all, and why. Okay. The categories arrived at fall into six distinct groups. The number refers to items and examples. Number one, those that involved in baseless attacks on the subject's body being remotely controlled, mind control. Seven, seven said 7 out of the 50 physical elements as direct gang stalking. 10, V2K 18 people controlling surveillance devices implanted in the body. 20 people said it. Let's see, number two, those involved in exterior attack of the person of the subject or senses, physical interference, intimidation. Three, targeted by noise. Six, and physical attacks. 21. Physical interference with the individual. See, I don't. Physical interference. Hold on. The categories are the numbers. The numbers refer to the items examples in table one. Okay. Okay, let's see. None of the authors of narratives described experiences belonging to more than 20 of the 24 categories listed. Of the authors, 14% described experiences from 15 to 20 categories, with 6% of the population describing experience with 20. 27%, that's getting confusing. So, content analysis of self-defined gang stalking events counts of their experiences. Okay, psychological damage. Frequency percentage of victim responses. Exemplar quotes. Okay, so let me see how far we're going to go here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go through this and then read the summary and we'll be done for the day. Okay, all right, here's psychological damage. 42%. I hate my life with such a passion, yet I'm depressed. Sometimes the idea of death sounds inviting. Another person, from fear and confusion, self doubt, anger, disbelief, shock, doubting my sanity, gloom, depression, isolation, bewilderment, and more. Another person said this issue's brought a severe case of depression starting to take a toll on my health. My sleeping patterns completely abnormal. Another person said I was drained, stressed, emotionally, mentally, took off work on a regular basis. Another person said I would crack and begin a death spiral into substance and alcohol abuse. Number two, 34%, 17 people out of 50, isolation and loneliness. The biggest, most hurtful thing with gang stalking is loneliness. Another person, I'm lonely, friendless, and have no woman. I don't even have other TI friends. Another person, I choose to isolate and I trust virtually nobody. I don't even attempt relationships anymore because they all turn out to be perps. Um, and I was in that mindset before. It's a horrible mindset to be in, and I've been there, and I think we've all been there at one point. Uh, and the trauma makes it like that, where even if something good comes in your life, you won't believe it's real because you're accustomed to so much bad happening constantly for years. It's hard to even trust when something good does happen, and you turn it down. Okay, they've made it so I'm totally alone. I've had so many friends, and now I'm a hermit. You know, these last two things subjects I've just covered is very serious. The psychological aspect of this program is horrific. That's why it's good to do gratitude lists regularly, positive affirmations, exercise. You got to do something to stay positive and keep your mind positive, even if you're getting tortured. And another thing it helps is to, if you've been in this program for a while, is to learn what you're sensitized to, because anything what you're sensitized to can set you off without you even realizing it until you've done reacted to whatever set you off. Okay, determination to fight back. 32%. I've decided I can surrender or I can fight, so I'm ready, prepared to have as big a mouth about this as I can. Another person said after 2 years of workplace harassment, 1 year being stalked by police, I decided to fight back. Another person said so. They're losers from the outset and will be the losers if the theme target individual enters the public spotlight. That must be our goal as victims. These people are itching to drag into the light like it happened with Snowden. Another person said, please do, let's organize effectively. We can either go out on our feet or on our knees, and I plan to sell myself for as high as price I can reap from them. Another person said, light up the dark, fight for the freedom that's our birthright, and challenge the evil. We will not be broken. And another person, I don't have much problem with the gang stalkers anymore because I shot two of them with my wrist rocket, and they were pretty cowardly anyway. Won't even come out and fight me in a secluded parking lot at night, though I've called them out dozens of times. I'm not advising you to act out in violence unless you're defending yourself from bodily harm. Number four, resentment, distressed at being treated as crazy and paranoid. Well, I've been there. 28%. Dismissing what I have lived with as nonsense is quietly, frankly offensive, one person said. Another person said, of course, no one would listen. I would simply be ignored as paranoid or crazy. Another person said, let's face it, stalking is hardly in public consciousness as yet, so they will have the perfect cover to deny it. Hence, you must be crazy if it is some of they want you to sound crazy and be treated badly. Another person said, telling me that I'm crazy and I need help. Another person said, every person I know believes I'm mad. And that's the story of a lot of TIs. But have faith. It's going to come out soon. And it's got the attention of this study. Um, but from my experience and speaking with targets on a regular basis, it is coming out slowly but surely. Now, will it be exposed and the courts shut it down and reward people money and stuff and all that? I don't believe that's going to happen. I believe it's going to be rolled out in the whole world. I believe we're heading for the end game, transhuman. I believe by 2035, maybe 2030, there will not be any more 100% humans left, and that's sad, but it's true. I mean, that's my belief. It's going to be a transhuman era. We're coming upon the transhuman age, and that's sad. Does that mean stop fighting your cases and stop fighting for this? No, but it's just crazy. It's not. It's downright crazy. I do suggest that you download a copy of the Declaration of your brain rights. And if you haven't got a copy, email me. I'll send you the copy, 17 pages, and file it at your clerk's office. Okay, number five. Found support from other stalking victims through the internet, 26%. So my only solace is visiting a few sites, this being one of them. Another person said, first, to thank you very much for the presence of this website community, the alleviation of stress during despair by realizing I'm not alone. It's been a massive help these past days. I remember I was desperately seeking answers to my stalking experience. I was searching the net and not getting answers. I was searching everywhere. I was disturbed, alone, persecuted. It was perhaps April 2008 I came across somebody having similar experiences to mine. I selected this site because of her. I suggest you go to this gang stalking website and read how you can help yourself now. Another person said, I made my own support network and I talk with people around Australia and the world. Number six, changed lifestyle, 26%. I've changed all my habits, including the supermarket, since stalkers have gone to all public places and tried to intimidate me. Another person said, no way can I live my normal life now. So many things I cannot do anymore. Another person said, I can no longer attend church or see a movie or any of the normal things that non-TIs can do. Another person said, my life's completely changed. Harassment continues ever since. And another person that hurts to admit this, my life's now different as a result of stalkers that no longer go out. Financial losses, 24%. These people will not leave and are there to help you reach financial ruin. Another person said the cost of time, money, and damage to my good name. Another person said I've lost untold amounts of money. Another person said financial burden caused by bureaucrats that injured me emotionally, mentally, and financially. Another person said they have enormous untold financial means. Now I'm in a position where I have no money because of it. Um, Physical ailments as a result of stress caused by gang stalking, 20%. When all these things happened, I got sick, back pain, lost motion, headaches, breathing problems, allergy, cough. I could not sleep well. Another person said it was negatively impacting me mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, physically. I was getting physically sick at times. Another person said I get a lot of chest pain from the worry of it all. Another person said the stress of it all is so bad I can't go to work and suffer with nausea and headaches pretty much full time. Another person said the anger and stress and all the other negative emotions make me physically disabled. Development of hatred, violent tendencies, 16%. One person, I'm at the point where I absolutely hate everyone, wish the worst death on all who gang stalk me. Another person, I may have to kill them before they kill me. And then once again, violence is not the answer, and I don't promote violence unless you're defending yourself. Nobody who's ever committed an act of violence trying to answer this problem or trying to get heard has been heard or the problem answered or looked at. Sometimes I even imagine my stalkers being strongly tied, their mouths filled with socks, and me beating the crap out of them by a heavy iron stick. I fantasize about them killing in many possible ways. This person said, and it's sad, but people get mad, and they let it, and they don't, and they let it build up. And we've all been there, but it's not the answer. And I said, I know it's a sin to hate and kill. I can't help these feelings. They simply come sometimes spontaneously. I was never like that before. Gang stalking made me very aggressive. Another person said, I'm so full of hate now I feel like I'm going to combust. Another person said, it makes me violent sometimes. Another person, I think the only way forward is to get some weapons and act. I don't think that's the way forward at all, nor do I promote it. I'm just saying what 16% of the people in this survey said. 8 people said that out of 50. All right, 10. Efforts to escape from stalkers. Gang stalkers, 14%. English is my second language. I ran away to Israel, but the criminal FBI followed me. Another person said, how many times have I moved? 3. Interstate. There's a hiatus, but they resurface. Another person said, I've lost everything trying to get away from them, but their reach is endless. They always find me. Another person said, I've given up trying to get away from them. Now you cannot hide, so don't waste time running. I agree. Another time, for a long time, I've made efforts big and efforts to leave them behind, or big efforts to leave them behind. I've traveled so far. Okay, now we're on 11. Feelings of hopelessness. 14% of the people, 7 people said this, and that's amazing. You know, that not more. I find it hard to believe that not more than 14% talked about hopelessness out of 50. I pray that my future will be different. I have little hope it will be. Learned helplessness has been their primary ongoing victory over me in a last 2 years. Another person said simply, I feel like my life has no future at all. Another person said, I really don't think I have much strength to put up with that much longer. Another person said, every day I'm more despairing and they have broken me down. Okay, the categories fell into grooves. Okay. Okay, let's see. All right, let's get on here to the comparison. So comparisons between content analysis of internet questionnaire samples on phenomena constitute experience of being gang stalked. Uh, so so these are two different so 128 people were surveyed in one study, 50 in the other. All right, so one study, physical surveillance being followed with 94% in the 50 study and the 128%, 85%. I mean, the 128 people. Victims of conspiracy by multiple agencies. 80% said it in one study, 32% in the big study, in the 128 study. Physical interference, intimidation, and harassment. 60%, 66% in the frequency and percent in the first study that I read, and 35%, 46 out of 128 in the Sheridan and James study. Established cover 'em up. 64% talked about it in one study. 17% talked about it in the James and Sheridan study. Electronic surveillance. 60% said electronic surveillance was happening in the 50 people study. 55.5 in the 128 people study. So close comparison. Targeted by noise. 44% in one, 43.8 in the other. So that was close. Being remotely controlled and mind control. 40% in one, 30.98%. That's interesting. In another, subject to electronic hacking, 38% and 27%. So that's kind of close too. Victimized as part of a global phenomenon, 38% in one study. In the James and Sheridan, 6.3%. Physical ailments as a direct result of gang stalking, 36% in the first study, 23% in 23.4% in the second study. And when I say second study, it's the 128 people study. Okay, number 11. It's targeted by slander gossip, 34% in the 50 people study, 20% in the 128 people study. Uh, Reinterpretation of past events in the light of gang stalking, and experiences, 34% and 16%. Subject to unauthorized entry to home, 34% and 21%. So these are kind of close numbers. Now, what was establishment cover up? 64% in the first study, 17%. There were big differences that. There's big differences in the physical interference study, 66%, intimidation harassment, 66 and 35. Uh, okay, let's see. Vandalism, theft of personal property, 32% in one study. In the big study, 10.9%. Police as part of the conspiracy, 32% in the little study. In the big study, 17.9%. Neighbors as part of the conspiracy, 26% one study and 17.9% in the big study. Family and friends of the victim also targeted. 26% said it in one study. In the big study, 11.5% said it. V2K, 26% of people said it in the first study, and then 128 people studied, 21.8%. Family and friends as part of conspiracy, 24% in the first study. James and Sheridan, 11.5% said it. Control and surveillance devices implanted in the body, 24% and 24% even. I think that's interesting. Physical attacks, 22%, 7.8% in the big study. Producing evidence of stalking fails to persuade authorities to intervene, 20% in the first one, 8.6% in the second one. 23, medical practitioners as part of conspiracy, 20% in the first study, James and Sharon, 8.6%. 24, complained they did not know why they were being stalked, 16%, 13.3% in the other study. Okay, let's see. Comparison. Here's another comparison. Psychological damage, 42% in the first study, same thing as the last. 44% in the other study. Isolation and loneliness, 34%, and the big study, 7.8%. That's weird because most targets are isolated that I've talked to, but I may. It's just weird. Resentment, distress is being treated crazy or paranoid, 28% in the first study, 13.3% in the Sheridan and James sample. Okay, found support other gang stalking victims through the internet. 26%. The first study, the James and Sheridan, 128 people, 4.7%. Changed lifestyle, 26%. The first one, 21% in the second one. Financial losses, 24% in the first one, 10% in the second one. Again, the second one's the 128 person study. They're comparing the two. Physical ailments as a result of stalking, stress caused by stalking. 20% in the first one, 17.9. That's close in the second one. Development of hatred, violent tendencies. 16% in one, 7% in the other. Escaping from gang stalkers. 14% and 5.5%. And feelings of hopelessness. 14%. 17% in the or 17.9% in the big study. Okay, and let's just see how much further I'm gonna go with this. Let's see. Let's just read the conclusion, and if anybody wants the link, just ask me, and I'll put the link in the comments. Here's their conclusion. This is their conclusion, okay? This is their conclusion from the study. This is not my conclusion. This is their conclusion. We know what our conclusions are because we experience it. So the experience of being stalked appears to be a widespread phenomenon, been subject to little scientific examination. The current study provides a preliminary description of phenomena involved that was produced by a methodology that did not incorporate preconceived assumptions. This provides a foundation upon which further research could be built. It also serves to confirm the harmful effects of the gang stalking experience upon the sufferers first set out in the other study available. These findings constitute a potent reason why gang stalking should be regarded as an important subject for study. While it's important to adopt a methodology that allowed the phenomenon constituting the experience of gang stalking to emerge de novo, it would now be appropriate to conduct studies of cases based upon scientific questions in order to gain a clear idea of the proportion of sufferers who experience each category of the phenomenon. And de novo means in a pure meteor accuracy, everyone uh, in a pure meteor accuracy. So, and he's saying that in order that a methodology that was important to adopt a methodology that allowed the phenomenon constitute the experience of gang stalking to emerge de novo. That means emerge in a pure meteor accuracy, a pure study, untainted study. Okay. So why it's important, and this is because higher proportions are likely to be elicited through direct questioning than were found by studying internet descriptions. Finally, while this study has described the core phenomena of gang stalking experience, the question remains as to whether gang stalking is a single phenomenon or represents several overlapping phenomena, each with its own dividing pattern of experiences. The validity of the gang stalking phenomenon extracted from the current study sample is supported by comparison with earlier results obtained from a self-selected sample using questionnaire methodology. So anyway, I hope this helps somebody today. Just get an idea of how many people experience what and all that. I saw some. I saw some very. I took interest in it and thought it'd be very helpful for some people, especially new targets trying to find out more about this stuff going on. And the authors declared no conflicts of interest. This research received no external funding. Uh, and that is it. I hope this has helped someone today. And thank you for taking the time to listen to my videos. If you have any questions or want to schedule my interview or want to come tell your story or a story about what you went through or what you're going through, just feel free to email us at targetedtestimonies@pm.me. Thanks again. God bless.